Hi, Farson.
Esther, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm just waiting for a couple of people to join. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us today. I'm so thankful to have you. I know that we've been planning this for a while, so it's really nice to see this finally start. So we're just gonna wait like maybe a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe, and then we'll officially start. Sound good to you?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to discuss some real estate and
Yeah, I know
all
that
about rentals and
I'm constantly
buying.
by that. So I cannot wait to hear all the good things that you have. I know this is something that I feel like applies to a lot of people that are already here in Canada, but then it's also useful for people who are looking to immigrate. So I'm really excited to hear all the wisdom that you have to give us today.
No, definitely. No matter when you came here or if you already been here or for anyone that is planning to come to Canada, eventually you need a roof over your head. Whether it's rental or buying, there's always tricks to every aspect of real estate. So,
Absolutely. Okay, so we're just gonna wait 2 more minutes. I think we'll start at officially 12:05. Just give more time for some people to arrive, and then we'll kick this off. So we thank everybody who's already here. Thank you so much, and it'll just be a moment. So please be patient with us. We just want to give everyone the opportunity of listening in on all that Farzan has to offer. So. It shouldn't be too long. Thank you so much for being so patient.
no worries. We'll wait.
You have a very nice background back there, though, Farzan.
Yeah, it's not bad. Remax office.
I meant the poster.
The poster, yeah, the
Yes.
sold one. It's good.
All right, just 1 more minute, guys, and then we'll officially start. Thank you to all who are showing up already. We see a lot of love in the comments. Farzan, you were very popular. um, some familiar faces too.
Yes,
That's nice.
some sympathetic crew.
Yeah, it's like a reunion up in here. Thank you for the love. I think it's great that we get to do this together. You know, we were in school together,
Yeah,
and now we're both in our similar but different paths. So I think this is really great that we were able to do this. You know, we go way back. Um,
that's true. It's
so
always a pleasure to work with people that you knew from a long time ago, each in different fields, that somehow you can help each other. It's nice.
And it's officially 12:05. So, true to my word, we're going to start. So, I'm going to reintroduce Farzan. So, Farzan is someone that I've known a very long time. And now he is actually a real estate agent. So, for all of you who are interested in moving to Canada, trying to figure out how to have a home here, for all of those that are in Canada who are, trying to find a house, you know, Farzan is an amazing real estate agent. He's really great at what he does, and he's going to be able to bless us today with some tips on how we can find some housing here. So, Farzan, I'm going to have you take it away, and you can go ahead and start blessing us with your knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for the lovely instruction, Esther. It's always a pleasure. I mean, so in terms of rentals, there are really different type of rentals out there. There are private landlords, there are rental apartments, there are rental condos. So it all depends on the person's situation, because each situation requires them to look for a different type of rental. For example, if they are a bigger family, most likely they will need a house. A lot of times the houses are private landlords, which are like private investors, and they mostly work with agents. But if, let's say, they just require an apartment, then in that case, there's a lot of apartment buildings out there. This being said, I mostly deal with private landlords, private investors, but we can also help for finding them an apartment building because just like how, for example, they can probably fill up their immigration paperwork themselves, but if they get you to do it, there's tricks and you know what works best for them in order for them to have the best opportunity. Same goes with rentals. There's a lot of like small points that if you do them correctly on the rental application, you have a higher chance. And it's all about knowing your rights. For example, a landlord cannot discriminate if someone has pets or if you're on ODSP or if they're on benefits. Now, maybe a lot of times when they migrate to Canada, they might be on benefits, in which a landlord cannot discriminate against that. So that's against the Ontario Human Rights Code. So it's good to be aware of all of this stuff. Now, the tenancy agreement cannot evict you just, for example, because you have a pet. But the landlord can refuse to give you a unit if, like right at the beginning, they know that you have a pet.
Okay.
But once you get the rental, even if you promise that you will not buy a pet, but you end up buying a pet, still they can't kick you out. So all the stuff it's good to be aware of, especially when you come to Canada. It's really good to know the law and like so you protect yourself. And then, for example, a lot of times when they come here, because when you apply for a rental, you they will do a credit check on you. They will check your income. They will need like employment letter. But a lot of times this might be hard for someone new to Canada to have all this in place. So what they can do, for example, they can bring a guarantor or they can bring a co-tenant. Now there's a difference between the guarantor and the co-tenant. The co-tenant basically is just like someone else living in the apartment with them, which makes the application stronger. So the landlord has an ease of mind. Another thing you can do, for example, landlords can't request you to pay more than 2 months of rent. So the first and last month, it's always given as a deposit, but they cannot request you to pay more than that. But if you really want that unit and you know your situation of the rental application is not so great, you can offer, for example, 3 months of rent up front or 5, in which case again gives the landlord the ease of mind and you can get the unit. But a landlord cannot request you that. And also the landlord cannot request you to pay, for example, only by check or only by cash. So they can't. You pay however you want to pay. I mean, they can like propose it, tell you we prefer, for example, check, but again, you don't have to. So all this is good to know for them once they start looking for a rental. And so I do help with the rental, finding an apartment or a housing depending on their situation. There's a lot of different areas in Ottawa. Now, if you go to some areas, that probably wouldn't matter because it's not such a good area that they just want tenants in.
Okay.
But if it's a family that they require like a good area, which those areas they do pick and choose the tenant. So it's always good to have someone represent you so they can try to guarantee you to get the place. And also a landlord cannot request you to pay a damage deposit.
What is a damaged?
So, for example, sometimes maybe they will say, in addition to the first and last month's rent, you have to give us another $1,000. We'll keep it. So once the lease expires and you leave the unit, if there's any damage, we'll use that against the damage. So they can't. They can't collect a damage deposit ahead of time.
Okay.
And the first and last month rent has to be used for the first and last month.
Okay.
It cannot be used for damages.
Okay. And so, Farzan, my question to you would be, how can a newcomer be able to find a rental property here, right? Like, how can a newcomer or someone who is looking to immigrate to Canada, how are they able to actually be able to, be able to rent an apartment? What would be the procedure? I know that every situation is different. So, granted, you can't give us specific details, but what is something that you would recommend that people who are trying to come into Canada, people who want to try to find an apartment, once they're receiving their permanent residency, their PR card is on the way, they already want to look for housing. What would you recommend, or what steps should they take while they are, in search for a home?
So, like I said, for example, if they are looking for an apartment, like a two-unit in an apartment building, there's a lot of apps or online that they can look at the units and then contact the property. Yes, there's apps. I can send them to you afterwards so you can kind of pass it on to them. So they can use that to look at the apartment buildings. But if they want a house, which is mostly private landlords, in that case, they will most likely have to deal with a real estate agent. But even for apartment buildings, it's always good, for example, for them to give me a call or whoever else, if they know someone else, and ask them information about the area, about the building, about the rent, and everything else. So from the beginning, they move in with an ease. So, and also each year, because the rent can be increased here in Ontario, but that's limited. So, for example, it's good for them to know, for example, next year the rent increase, it's only 1.2%. So if they have a landlord that is trying to increase the rent on them by 10%, so that's a no-no. So it's always good to have someone that they can call for information, but there is a lot of apps, or they can look online for apartment buildings, because those apartment buildings are mostly self-managed by property managers. And if they're trying to get a house, then in that case, it's better to work with a real estate agent.
Okay. And what if they don't have a job? So, what would be like something that they would have to, because I imagine when you're looking for a rental property, they do look at the finances, right? And they look at whether you have financial stability or et cetera. So a lot of people that are, coming from Canada, they don't already have a job offer in hand, right? So what is something that can kind of help them prove financial stability for the rental agreement, that would help them be favorable or be approved to be able to rent an apartment.
Exactly. So every landlord wants to know that you'll be able to pay at the end of the month. If they're on benefits, they can show their proof of benefits, so they can show that they're getting some income. And if they don't have benefits or income at all, well, they have to have some sort of funds to be able to pay for the rent. So now it's just a matter of showing that type of fund. So if they come here with money, then they can show their bank statement. And like I said, and they can offer, for example, 3 to 5 months of rent instead of just first and last. So
Okay.
that's a trick they can use. But if they're getting benefits, they have to show, for example, we're getting benefits from here, and this is how much we're getting. In which case, the landlord cannot refuse just because they're on benefits. But it also has to meet, for example, if they're getting $500 benefit and the rent is 2,000, well, doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So make sure that you have money that's within your means. So how much would you recommend that foreign individuals have in their bank account if they are looking to rent an apartment, right? Because yes, they absolutely need to have at least, if let's say 6 months rent already in there, but like what would make them look more credible?
I think, again, it depends what kind of housing they're looking for. I mean, if they're just looking for something around the 1,200 range, like a one bedroom or a two bedroom, it's always good to have, for example, I would say 7 to 10,000 in your bank account. And then if you're trying to get a rental for 2,000, it's good to have, let's say, 15,000 in the bank account.
Okay.
So that way the landlord will know, okay, they have at least, for example, 6 months of funds for rent and for food for basic necessities.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense. And what about credit score? So for those that are, they have become a permanent resident and all of that, and they are able to get a job, what is like the what is the like recommended? Well, obviously you want to have the highest credit score possible, but what kind of like the pass limit in terms of credit score?
I mean, everything over 6 to 620 is good for a rental, even for a mortgage. Like anything over 6 to 620 is good. Obviously, the higher the better, but 620 is good. And a lot of times it's hard for them to have a good credit score or a credit score at all. That's why in those cases they will most likely need a guarantor. But the credit score 620 is good, 620 or higher. And it's not only the credit score though. A lot of people misunderstand. They're like, oh, my credit score is 750. But the landlord looks at your credit report and they see you're 80,000 in debt with 5,000 monthly payments with $4,000 income. Well, nothing's matching up. So it also depends on your monthly payment. So they will see how much you owe to your credit cards, to your line of credit, maybe to your vehicle. So all these, it's good factors.
No, that's great because I'm one of those people who just thought, credit score is all that was needed. If you have a higher credit score, it'd be fine. So it does make sense what you're saying about, looking at all the aspects because, there is imbalances like that, but doesn't really make any sense. So I do appreciate that you kind of let us know a little bit more about that because I'm going to tell you I was one of those people. I just assumed if you have high credit score, you get anything. So
But
um,
yeah, because a lot of times, let's say now you have a 750 credit score and you're moving in next month. Well, by that time, you might destroy your credit score to 600. So mostly they care about the whole report in its entirety. So how much you owe, how much credits you have, and everything else.
Okay. And how would it be for those that have like children and etc. How are they able to find like locations that are, great in term for their kids? Like how can we, I know that that's a very big question because, it depends on where they are, but do you think that, rather I can reword the question, do you think that it's a great market right now for renting a property in general? Especially when you do have, a family or children. Like I know that the rates are a little higher right now as opposed to previous years. So what would you say is like the best time to even do that? To go ahead and rent a property or to find an apartment or etc.
To be honest, there is no like a specific timing for rentals. So whenever you need a rental, you start looking. And now the market is hot, whether it be for buying or renting. Now, if they have a child and they're looking for a better, calmer area, there is a link. I will send it to you. You can share it with them. There you can see basically all Ottawa, what has happened, crime rate, theft. So they kind of see, for example, if they find the apartment building 3 bedroom and then they can see the area, so they kind of see what's the crime rate, what's the theft rate, like so on. The school district, is it good, is it not good? And then they can decide accordingly. And yeah, I will send you the link so you can share it with them and that way they can check. And also if they have kids, even if they don't, if they're trying to get a rental in a condo, so either if it's a condo building or just a condo townhouse, they really, really have to check the status certificate. Now that's something we can check for them if they want, but that's really important because each condo has its own bylaws and rules, and every condo has different bylaws and rules. And the bylaws and rules of the condo, it overrides the bylaws and rules of Ontario. So if the condo says no pets, that's no pets. Now it overrides even the Ontario Human Rights Code. Some condos says, for example, they have rules 2 individual per unit. Now, if it's a couple, they're moving in and they're expecting a baby, well, by the time the baby is born, they gotta go. They can't stay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they always have to, condos are really tricky. They have to look into it a lot and see if it meets what their requirements are. Or if they're planning, for example, they have visitors every week. If the condo rule says only two visitors at a time per week, well, they gotta look into it.
Okay. No, I did not know that either. So that's a really good thing to note. And speaking of condos, that is a question that I had because I did hear that there are different fees for condos, different rules and etc. Like I think can you clarify if there is such a thing as like condo fees at the end of the year that they also have to pay for? Because I have heard about something like that.
Yeah, so there's a condo fee that they pay every month, and the fee is different for each different condominium. Some are 200, some 4, some 600. Some include waters and electricity and like hydro, some doesn't. So this is all the factors you have to look into, like what is included in the condo fee. And the one you're mentioning, like at the end of the year, that an additional fee you have to pay, it's not always. It's whenever the condo has a special assessment. So, for example, they say we need to redo the entire windows, and then we have a budget of, let's say, 50,000, but we need another 50,000. So now they divide that additional 50,000 by all the units, and they say each of you have to pay additional 3,000 within the next 2 months. And if you don't pay, they will put a lien on the property. They can even sell your property.
Okay. So what is a lien?
So a lien is when you owe, for example, to a credit card or to a condominium. So you owe them money and then you ended up not paying. It goes to collection agency, you still don't pay. Now they put a lien on the house. So now you cannot sell the house unless that lien is paid off. Even if you try to sell it, like at closing date, the lawyer will say, you know what? For example, there's a 10,000 lien on the house. We have to pay that off first so we can close the house and close the deal.
Okay, wow, that's pretty big stuff.
Yeah, condos are really tricky.
Okay. And what would you say are like the biggest challenges for, renting in general for an apartment or a condo? Like what would you say is the things that can come up that are pretty difficult when it comes to that?
So some things to consider is if you're looking for a house to rent, especially for example landlords that they put the house on MLS, automatically they're looking for like a triple A tenant, which is not the reality, but so this is always something to consider. If there's something on MLS, they're probably looking at someone with really high credit score with income 3 times of the rent amount. And then a lot of things to consider is the area. The area is very important. Now, some buildings, they might let you in easily. You fill up the application, they don't even look at it. They just want the unit to be occupied. But you have to really see like what's going on in that building. Is it a good building? Is it not? Is the area overall good? Because maybe the location is good, like you're close to everything, but is the area good itself? Now, if you have family, that's really something important to look.
Okay, thank you. And I wanted to know as well, would you say that it would be better to like find a rental property near the summer or near the winter? Is there like better to do it per that season or like what would you recommend there?
Usually it's spring, like spring is the hottest season. Spring and maybe the first and second month of summer. It's really like a hot season for buying, selling, renting, like everybody's on the go. People moving out, people moving in, people buying, selling. So the summertime is always a good time to look at renting.
Okay.
And it's not, don't try to push it till the end of summer, till September, because that's when everybody starts, like the last minute people starts to looking for rentals, students, people that moving to Ottawa for example, jobs or seasonal jobs, everybody starts looking at September. So always do it before that.
Okay. And guys, please remember that we are accepting questions. So if you guys do have any questions, feel free. You can always just message us and let us know. Farzan is here to answer any questions that you guys have, or for myself as well. I can always answer any question you guys have as well. That is within my means. I think we just got one for you actually. Do you need your own? Do you need your own money for real estate? I think that's what you're trying to say. Can you clarify if that's the right question? 8.08 Inc.
Oh, that's Michael, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think that's
So,
what. Do you need your own money for real estate? I think that's the question.
well, you need money, whether it be yours or not. That's a different story, but you need at least 5%. If everything else meets the criteria, you need 5% for a down payment. Now, if you get that from someone you know or an investor, sure, why not?
Okay. So it can be, I think maybe what he meant was asking if it had to come directly from you or if you can have like someone else, like your mom or whatever. Like let's say you didn't have the funds, but you needed to rent a property. Can another family member be able to rent the property on your behalf? Or
Well, in that case,
co-sign or something?
yeah, in that case, they can't rent it on your behalf and then you go start living there. All parties have to be on the agreement to lease. So you will be as the first tenant, and then they will either be as the second tenant, co-tenant, a guarantor, whatever works in that situation. But they will be on the application with you.
Okay. I do have another question for you, Farzan. It says, for non-resident Canadians, would it always have to be 35% down?
Right now, that's what it is. And also, there was talks a few days ago that they're trying to increase the foreign buyer tax. So because of the real estate market is really hot right now in Canada, especially in Ontario, they are trying to put a lot of more regulations in terms of to kind of just slow down the foreign buyers just a bit by a small fraction.
Okay.
But yeah, right now it's 35%, but the interest rate, it's not that much of a difference with if you were a resident of Canada.
Okay.
Now, when we say resident of Canada, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't have a PR or citizenship. So even if you're a citizen of Canada, but you don't live 6 months or more in Canada, so you live 6 months or more abroad, but even you're a Canadian citizen, now you will be considered non-resident. So all these will apply to you. So when you sell, the CRA will hold back 25% to 50%, depending what the property was used for, until they take the capital gain, and then they will give you the rest of the fund. When you buy, you pay the foreign buyer tax.
Okay. And what's the first three steps to get into real estate? Oh, good question. So that is something. Someone wants to get into real estate, I think. I'm not sure if he's a foreigner, but that is a really good question. What are the first three steps that you need to do to be a real estate agent?
Well, first, know what's your goal. So what's your end goal? Are you trying to just buy a house that you can live in there for the next 10, 15 years? Are you looking for a quick flip? Are you looking for an investment property, a rental property? So you have to know your goal. That's the first step. And then the second step is, okay, now I know my goal. What do I need in terms of funds, credit, like mortgage, all this? And then the third, I think working with a good agent that can tell you every aspect of the house, of the area. If Because a lot of times you go off track, like you see houses that you like, that now you're going off track. So our job is to bring you back to the original, like your original goal.
Okay. And by the way, the good agent is Farzan. So if you are trying to get into real estate, please go ahead and shadow Farzan. As I said, he's really good at what he does, and you could greatly learn from him. So Use your
Thank you. Appreciate it.
use your connect already. The next question is, how can you use the equity in your first property to purchase your second and third investment property? That's a really good question.
So once you build enough equity in your first home, you can refinance. And now I think it's a great time to refinance for whoever that has a first property because of the interest rate, which are going up starting April. So just heads up, the interest rates are going up. So take out equity. Now you have equity that you can use as your down payment for your second and your third home.
Okay. All right. So salutations and greetings, Brother Farzan. Oh God, Nebs. What's the recommended percentage down on investment property nowadays? I'm hearing 5 to 20%.
So now, if it's less than 500,000, it's 5% for the first 500,000. After that, it's 10% that you have to put down. And then it comes back to, again, what's your goal? A lot of people say you have to put down 20 so you avoid the CMHC insurance or the mortgage default insurance. But a lot of times, if you have that insurance, you get approved easier, plus your interest rate is lower than if you don't have that default insurance. So yeah, you pay around, I would say maybe 7 to 10,000 for the default insurance, sometimes more. But if you factor everything in, your rate, if you have the insurance, your rate is lower. So your monthly payment is lower. And a lot of times when you do have the insurance, you have to pay the HST of the insurance, which is a closing cost. So that amount can't be added onto the mortgage. You have to pay out of pocket.
Okay. And what are the fees and taxes for a property considered an investment property?
What are the, sorry, what was that?
What are the fees and taxes? So I'm reading that with you. What are the fees and taxes for a property considered an investment property? So what are the fees and taxes for an investment property?
So investment property, again, it all depends. So at the beginning, so let's say you have an investment property that it's generating rental income. That income, now it's your income. So when you go do your taxes, that will be added onto your income. Again, and that will depends on how much other incomes you had because we have different brackets for different income levels. So that will determine how much you pay on the rental income. Now, once you sell the home, because it was an investment property, it was generating income for you, you have to pay capital gain. Now, the capital gain, it's only 50% of the entire gain. So let's say if you made 100,000 when you sold the home, so you made 100,000 profit, they will only add 50,000 of that profit onto your income.
Okay. And the next question is, after how long after purchasing a home can you refinance if you put down 5%?
It's usually, it depends what's your original mortgage. So is it a 3-year mortgage, 5-year mortgage? Because if you refinance before the term ends, then you will pay a penalty. And that is usually 3 to 6 months of interest payment. So you have to say, is it really worth refinancing? Like, did you build that much equity in that time? Because a lot of times you probably have to wait 3 to 5 years for the entire term in order for you to build equity that you can refinance and take out.
Okay. And can a non-citizen and non-PR purchase investment property?
Yes, they can. They just need 35% down payment of the value, and they have to pay, uh, in some, now in Ontario, in some cities don't require it, but a lot of cities do, which is 15% foreign buyer tax.
On top of the 35%?
So the 35% is your down payment. So
Right.
yeah, you must have 35% down payment if you're not a if you're a non-resident. Now the 15%, it's a tax that you're paying that you will never see it again.
Okay. And what would you recommend we put down as a down payment for an investment property?
For investment property, you have to look at the numbers. If you have 20%, and if you can get two investment properties, and if you know a good mortgage broker that will somehow work things out for you, that will allow you to only put 10% on one and 10% on another, now you have two properties instead of one. Now you have two rental incomes. Now you're building two equities. So it's better to kind of diversify your portfolio. But sometimes if your situation is not that good, your portfolio is not that good in terms of your credit and income, they will do require you to pay 20% down.
Wow, okay. And is it true you pay 13% taxes on your property when you buy an investment property?
If it's
It's
so
at
if it's
they clarified it's at the purchasing stage, not selling.
Yeah, so at the purchasing stage, a lot of properties are different. We just had a meeting about this actually 2 days ago, and so if it's the property is generating income, at once you're trying to sell it, HST doesn't apply. Sometimes it does. Each case is different. So a lot of times you have to check with your accountant, you have to check with CRA, see what was the house originally used for. If the garage was used for a mechanic shop and they were generating income, they declared income, it's with CRA, then you probably have to pay HST on that portion, whether, for example, 20% of the price might be taxable.
Okay. Wow, this is a lot.
Yeah, these things, it's not like black and white. It's really each property, each situation is unique and different.
Well, that's really good. That's really great. I'm really thankful for the information. I know that a lot of people are too, because you cleared up a lot of myths about real estate. Does anyone have any further questions for Farzan? If not, I think that we are good to go.
Yeah, anytime, even your clients, if they have any questions, either renting related, buying, selling related, let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist them.
Of course, since someone says it feels like loopholes all over the place, and it is very true. I think there are loopholes everywhere when it comes to real estate. So you just need to
Everywhere.
someone like Farzan who knows how to find them and who's able to help you reap the benefits of it. So I think we're going to conclude this here. Thank you so much, Farzan, for all the information that you've given us. I know that I've learned a lot in the 40 minutes that we've done this live. And I'm really, really grateful for, you coming on here and being able to give us all of this wisdom. So you've been absolutely amazing, and I'm so thankful for you. And for all of those who are immigrating to Canada or who know someone who wants to immigrate, we have partnered with Farzan. So he is our go-to real estate agent. So you can benefit from him in the future. So, you can go ahead and potentially find your home when you're arriving here in Canada. And for those of you who are locally here, as I've said before, Farzan is great. He's really knowledgeable. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he will definitely be able to find you an apartment or a condo that is suited to your needs. So Farzan, once again, thank you so much.
Thanks
And
so much, Esther. It was a
to all our
pleasure.
viewers, have an amazing day. And
You as well.
soon.
Thank you so much. Take care, Esther.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye bye.